Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you are. My name is Atv Asena. I'm a professor of accounting at the University of Delaware in the United States. I'm very appreciative of the honor given to me by Eritrea Focus to make few opening remarks in this session. Eritrean diaspora coming together, a topic that is of profound interest to me. I have attended all the sessions since Monday, and this is a session with the highest attendance, which to me is indicative of the interest of justice-seeking Eritreans in the diaspora to working together. I'm not going to waste my precious few minutes in recounting the atrocities committed by Isaias. We all know that, and for those who need to know more about how deplorable the situation in Eritrea is, I suggest you read the report of the UN Inquiry Commission on Human Rights Abuses in Eritrea, which amount to crimes against humanity. It has been several years since we have been saying that our country is at Afer Kubu stage, meaning at the verge of losing its hard-won sovereignty. I'm hoping that the speakers in this session will enlighten us on what we all can do together to save our country and to bring about democratic change in Eritrea. Eritreans in the diaspora, except the very few hardcore supporters of the regime, have proven beyond any doubt their interest in their country's affairs. We have recently witnessed over 100 Eritrean scholars and professionals with doctorate degrees who signed the 2020 manifesto condemning the atrocities committed by Isaias' government. The signers of the 2020 manifesto have now expanded their reach to non-doctorate degree professional scholars and activists and have established the Eritrean Research Institute for Policy and Strategy. The institute has recently issued a call to all Eritreans written in English, Tigrinya, and Arabic to join the institute. This call has been posted on several Eritrean websites, which I hope you have all seen and have responded positively. The institute is creating the structure and the mechanism that will enable Eritrean diaspora to work together to contribute to democratizing their country, to ensure its smooth transition to democracy, and to prepare the blueprints for its accelerated development. I urge you all to join the institute. As was repeatedly pointed out in the previous sessions, one of the reasons why diaspora Eritreans have been ineffective so far was because we have been too fragmented. We are not speaking with one voice. I remember a discussion I had with a person in charge of the Eritrean affairs in the United States State Department, the US, during the Obama-Biden era, who told me that the Obama-Biden team is sympathetic to the plight of the Eritrean people, but unfortunately, they could not help the Eritrean people until they come together speaking with one voice. I also recently listened to General Mesfin Hagwas on Radio Arena saying that the countries who wanted to help us are not helping us until we come together speaking with one voice. Fortunately, there is hope in the horizon. The Yakel People's Movement that is catching fire all over the world has the potential of forming a legitimate group who can speak with one voice for all justice-seeking Eritreans in the diaspora. But for the Yakel movement to be successful, all political party members and members of the various civic organizations should join the Yakel movement. I'm not suggesting political parties or civic organizations are not needed. In fact, we all need political parties since the post-Isaias Eritrea will be a multi-party democracy. However, first, we need to work together to get rid of the dictator. And the Yakel movement is the best mechanism to form a legitimate, all-inclusive representatives who can speak on behalf of all of us. I'm hoping the speakers in this session will show us the way forward. I'm also hoping the Eritrean Research Institute for Policy and Strategy will create a think tank group that will prepare a conceptual framework that will help the Yakel movement to succeed in forming legitimate global representatives. Thank you thank you very much for your attention. I now declare the session open for the speakers. Take it from here, Mr. Moderator. I think it is my friend Abdurrahman Said. Hashem. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Araya Devasai, my good friend and colleague and comrade in the struggle for Eritrean salvation. And Professor Araya's presentation. Sorry.
Abdu, sorry. Yes. Can you always introduce yourself, which is very important? Is that okay?
I will do.
Shukran.
So stop interrupting. Okay, but anyway, to look at the multi-party or consociational democracy in post-dictatorship Eritrea, because multi-party is something that can come and go, but the consociational democracy is something that it needs to be enshrined in the culture of consensus and compromise that brings people together and holds countries together as well. My name is Abdurrahman Said. I am based in London, UK, and I'm an activist or a retired activist, recently retired. So, because I've been an activist for over 30 years for human rights and political rights, both together, inshallah. Today I've been asked to moderate the session, but my role is going to be very limited to just introducing you to the theme of this event and then hand over to my colleague and friend, Fasaya Waldesus. So without further ado, first thing to let you know is this session is going to be recorded. If you're not interested in being recorded, then you can switch off your video so you're not recognized. The second, that whenever you want to speak, you can unmute yourself. Otherwise, stay muted. So there's no background noise to the speakers. So please observe that one, inshallah. And then when it comes to the question and answer time, you can wave a hand. There is an icon, I think, somewhere at the bottom of the screen that you can raise. And the technician will recognize that, and hopefully the person in charge will give you the floor to speak or the mic. Now, the aim of this virtual conference, which is, I think it's the first of its kind, is to produce a guide or blueprint that a new government can use once a democratic Eritrea emerges. This conference is to consider papers prepared by expert groups and to find where the gaps or errors are and what steps need to be taken to remedy them. The session will look into how to create a more professional opposition that provides synergy, ensures greater effectiveness and cohesion. What frameworks need to be set up to protect the rights of women and youth. And please do remember, one Eritrean woman is equal to 100 Eritrean men. I reassert that. How can cooperation and networking be improved between or with women and youth groups, political parties, and activists? What role can religious leaders, women, and the youth can play, including refugees, in peace building in Eritrea? How can we reunite to bring change in our country now and help to rebuild a new Eritrea? So these are the main themes and aims of this conference. And with that note, I will hand you over now to my colleague, Dr. Fissaye Woldesus. Over to you.
Thank you, Ustaz Abdurrahman, and thank you, Professor Araya, for opening the session. My name is Fissaye Woldesus. I'm a member of the conference organizing committee. And the conference, as you might have followed, it has 6 strands, and each strand has 1 coordinator or lead member of the conference organizing committee. So I try to organize this working together group to come up with some sort of a document to initiate some sort of working together, to start something, a blueprint to be written, and also further consultation and involvement of public can be done to it. So the task when we embarked on it, this strand, it was the latest to start among the group. And what we try to do is to try to involve as much as possible, okay? The different phase groups members, to try to involve our women activists, to try to involve civic society movement members, to try to involve as well political party groups to come with papers on this session. So far we have, we will come to our presenters. We have the phase groups, those who were able to prepare a paper, to come forward with their papers, and also a civic society members and activists from Yakel, from various backgrounds, to shed light on the positives of our working together and the weaknesses of our working together. Okay, so my part on this was mainly to coordinate and really to come with the essential questions that we need to ask when we are talking about working together. Many Eritrean initiatives have been taken from almost the dawn of Eritrean independence. Many initiatives, they didn't fulfill their aspiration or mission because we could not work together, because we could not prioritize our tasks. I don't think whatever group who comes with initiatives, they are coming with something which was not mentioned or said previously. The main task is, can we consolidate really our work? Can we prioritize our work? Okay, and in this light, I have given, I think you saw the presentation brief of the introduction of the working together group, why we need to work together. Because we all are suffering. We all want a democratic Eritrea. Every component of Eritrean society has suffered, regardless who, when the suffering happened, but eventually we all became victims of the current regime in Eritrea. If we continue the way we are, without prioritizing and coming together to set our agenda clear, then we will continue to suffer. The only beneficiary on this case will be the system in Eritrea. So in order to facilitate the justice-seeking Eritreans, we need to create platforms where with all our differences, we can come together and prioritize. The most important part here comes, it is participation. Because always, Eritrean groups, when we come together, we always try to look to people who look like us, who have the same aspirations as us, and always we become narrow group of people talking nationwide issues. If you want to raise a nationwide, an issue which affects every Eritrean society, or even a corner of an Eritrean society, if we don't look at it in terms of a nation, even if you are not affected today, you might be affected tomorrow. This should be the approach that we need to take. So what we try to do here is, as much as we can, to try to involve everyone to be listened, everyone to come and share their aspiration, their mission or their concept of working together, so that we can reach for a working group that can facilitate, to speed up the process that we want to reach the building democratic Eritrea. How do we do that? At the moment, our civic societies are divided, our political parties are divided, and we are not trying to work what is the priority for us in diaspora to reach to the Eritrea of tomorrow. You see, there are two phases of Eritrea to build democratic Eritrea. The first phase is that belongs to us as Eritreans living in diaspora. The second phase is, once the change in Eritrea happens, and during transition period, as those of us who are in diaspora and those Eritreans who are living under the tyranny of the current system, which are the majority, and they are also the major stakeholders that need to be involved in it. So we have one task. The main task, one, how can we facilitate the will to bring a democratic Eritrea? And the second is, how can we foresee from now, instead of suddenly we are caught by surprise, what sort of transition we are expecting? We know the transition will always depend on how the system or the change in Eritrea happened. But we can put the different scenarios on that and assume what is the best scenario that we want to have in Eritrea, to have a democratic Eritrea, a democratic transition period that will involve all Eritrean social groups in that transition period. So Eritreans have proved their armed struggle. They have paid their the ultimate price someone can give, which is yourself, in order to free Eritrea. If we have done that, I think the least that we can do, which is the least price that you can pay, is to come together to agree on priorities without paying that ultimate price that you need to pay. And this is the simplest which we have missed in the last 28 years of our struggle for justice. So I have my own slide, but there are 8 presentations to come. 3 from phase groups and 4 from activists. I promise you they are excellent. What we want to do here is not to dwell on the past, on what happened, what the system did, because we all agree on that and we know what happened. But we need really to focus, how can we move forward? And I have asked my colleagues who will be presenting to focus in future. Okay, if we focus in the future, assuming, and also I think I am right, because we all agree, we are all suffering by the same system, by the PFDJ system. Okay, and this PFDJ system doesn't care whether you are a Christian, you are a Muslim, a Highlander, a Lowlander, as long as he can survive and stay in power for long. And we have seen it recently. The current system in Eritrea, even the existence of Eritrea is not an issue for that system. So in that regard, I will try to pass the floor to three great gentlemen who are actively working with Eritrean community groups, okay? Actively helping the diaspora community from different backgrounds, from different phases, who know the grievance of the society, who hear the grievances of the society. Something we all need to understand. We all have grievances, but our grievances are somehow different. And sometimes we are feeling my grievance is more than the other person's grievance. And that is a sad thing. Okay. A grievance of any person or any Eritrean at the moment, currently, the Dakalia region is suffering a lot. Okay. We can see it. It is a topical issue in media now. That suffering belongs to every Eritrean. If we try to see that way, then it is one step of coming to common understanding. And we have missed opportunities before. The opportunity we missed them when every suffering was happening. Some Eritrean, one Eritrean was feeling he is not affected by that. And eventually the regime, clearly now, we can see he doesn't care wherever you come from, whatever your religion it is, you will be always controlled by PFDJ regime. You will be suffering, but you will not have the right to check or even challenge the PFDJ regime. So on that, I will pass you to three presenters from Phase Group. So the first will be Dr. Birhane Asmelash. Dr. Birhane Asmelash studied medicine in Addis Ababa University in Ethiopia. After qualifying as a doctor, he worked in several hospitals and health centers in Ethiopia. In 1993, after the independence of Eritrea, Birhane returned to Eritrea, where he worked as a church leader, as the head of medical projects. In 1999, he came to the UK to study theology and gained an MPhil. He is the co-founder and co-director of Release Eritrea, a UK-based Eritrean human rights charity concerned with religious persecution in Eritrea. He is also a minister in the Church of England. And Birhane is actively working with refugees in Ethiopia, and also he helps asylum seekers in the UK. He is very active in the Yaakil movement. He is involved in various task forces. And I will come back to you after Dr. Birhane to introduce also, well, shall I introduce as well? After Dr. Birhane, we will hear from Sheikh Adam Omar Abu Hanifa. He is a UK-based Islamic scholar and a prominent Muslim community leader born in Asmara, Eritrea. He has a BA in Islamic Studies from the Faculty of Hadith, Rabat in Morocco. He currently holds the position of chairperson and the operator's advisor for the Muslim Research and Development Foundation, a think tank aiming to find solutions based on the original teaching of Islam for Muslims living in the West. Abu Hanifa is a lecturer for various Eritrean Islamic communities and sits on the board of advisors for Islamic organizations in the United Kingdom, including the Eritrean Muslim Community Association. He is the chair and operations advisor and trustee of the Eritrean Islamic Academics Network. He has been a TV presenter in the Islamic channel for more than 14 years. And the last speaker from our religious leaders is Reverend Johannes Gabrihiwat. Reverend Johannes Gabrihiwat, Kashi Johannes Gabrihiwat, is a Coptic church priest, Orthodox church priest at Madhani Alam, God the Savior in Manchester. He has an MA in theology. He's a senior cleric conducting pastoral care and guidance for many Eritreans in Northwest England. He broadcasts various religious topics by giving homilies and teachings on scriptures via the internet and has many followers. He is well known for his powerful keynote speeches for freedom and justice and all the religious persecution and the abuse of human rights in Eritrea. He actively participates in seminars, discussion forums to promote peace and raise awareness the suffering of Eritrean people who are ruled by a regime which has no political mandate and does not abide by the rule of law. So with that note, I will ask Dr. Birhanes Malash to take the floor. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Saye. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Is it okay? Yeah. I'll speak briefly about the history of religion in Eritrea. Eritrea is the home of the world of two great religions, that's Christianity and Islam. We never had a census, I think, for the last 90 years, so we don't know the proportion, but it doesn't matter. Christianity is believed to have been introduced into Abyssinia in the 4th century, that is 330, by two Syrian brothers, prominent in that dispute. And after a few years, during King Asena's reign, Christianity became a state religion. So it's one of the earliest phases in Abyssinia, especially in Eritrea and in the so-called Tigray region. And according to some Muslim traditions, the first Muslim contact with the Abyssinians was during the 1st century of Islam, when Prophet Muhammad sent a group of Muslims to Ethiopia to escape persecution from their fellow countrymen in Mecca. Some Muslim writers refer to this migration as the first Hijrah. This frequently quoted tradition states, that's the quotation saying from the Prophet, if you were to go to Abyssinia, it would be better for you, until such time as Allah shall relieve you from your distress, for the king there will not tolerate injustice, and he is a friendly country. I like this phrase. The king will not tolerate injustice, and it's a friendly country. And these migrants were warmly welcomed by the Nugus, or it's called Najashi. And in response to the king's hospitality, Muslim tradition says that Muhammad warned Muslims not to attack Abyssinia as long as they did not attack the Muslims. So we had this good beginning, but our relation was mixed with conflicts and tolerance. most of the conflicts were instigated by foreign powers. For example, we can see the 16th century jihad from Ahmed ibn Ibrahim, or the known Ahmed Grind. And again, we have also in the 19th century from the Egyptian invasion and the Turkish. But there's always cooperation within Eritrea. And I couldn't find any conflict that started within the Eritrean society. So we had this peaceful coexistence. And we see some change after the colonialism, especially when the UN and the colonizers decided what to do with Eritrea. There were different political parties. And this is very important because in the 1940s and 50s, Eritrea was the only country with a multi political parties. For example, during the tenure of British administration, there was a bit of turmoil, but mostly it was resolved by discussion. There was no violence. But the British came with one condition, with one proposal, the partition of Eritrea. What they thought was, for them, Eritrea is Muslim and Christian, they will never live, be able to live together. So what they said was, the lowlanders or Muslims should join their Sudanese Muslim counterparts, and the Christian highlanders and the minority Muslim groups in the highlands and Massawa should join the Ethiopians. In 1943, this was saying by Sir Douglas Newbold. However, there was something that this person didn't understand. The real political situation was not as simple as what Sir Newbold anticipated. There were other non-religious issues that were more important for the Eritreans. For example, the Beni Amer people were not in constant, they were in constant conflict with the Eastern Sudanese tribe, the Hadendua, during the early 1940s. Therefore, they strongly opposed the partition of Eritrea. The other tribes, such as Muslims from Highlanders, from Massawa, and Hasaurta, were also mostly opposed to the union with Ethiopia. I don't want to go in detail, but what we see from here is they had hope. There was a common consensus that they could form a progressive country. We were not lucky to have a referendum on that era, but the opinion poll says about 75% were for independence. That's why they didn't want to give us the independence. There were different stakeholders, like the Ethiopian government, Haile Selassie, the British, the Italians, Americans, and other powerful nations. All of them, they were fighting for their own interests. And we were so weak at that time because it was a new nation to form our own nation. So that was the beginning of all conflict. And another thing we see is during the independence era, religion was not the main topic during that time. So all Eritreans were fighting the Ethiopians for the common cause, that's for justice and to have their own country. After the independence, the EPLF didn't come with any legislation, so we didn't know what their idea on religion was. So until 2002, we were freely worshipping, but in 2002 there was a new legislation from the EPLF. So this was the government summoned church leaders from every evangelical and Pentecostal denominations and instructed them to re-register their church. And while their registration is processed, to refrain from gathering at their respective church buildings. Some of the churches are historically linked with recognized and long-established Protestant denominations, such as the Presbyterians, Pentecostals, Baptists, Mennonites, Methodists, Adventists. And the church leaders accepted the decree with sadness and at the same time with the hope that a government which they completely trusted would fulfill its promise to reopen their church. However, to date, that's over 18 years, not one single church has received its registration. On the contrary, the government began broadcasting anti-church propaganda, slandering church leaders, falsely accusing them for being bribed by foreign forces such as the CIA. And they start to arrest people from their houses, from their private worship services, from weddings. Until now, we have hundreds of Pentecostals in prison. This didn't stop among the Pentecostals. In 2004, the government arrested some Orthodox clergy, such as Reverend Gabramedhin, Gergis, Reverend Dr. Futsum. He was the only psychiatrist at that time in Eritrea. Dr. Takhlab Mengsar. They are until now in prison. And a lot of Pentecostal ministers were also arrested. Now we have about 600 prisoners in several parts of Eritrea, Mysruwa, Medical Aviv, the Dahlak Islands, in Me'eter, Adabito. I cannot name all of them, but we have all these prisoners in all these places. There are some women who have been in prison since 2005. They were teenagers, but now they are in their late 30s and early 40s. In 2005, the Orthodox Patriarch, Abuna Antonius, was also arrested. I will not say much about that because probably Diakon Johannes will talk more about him. The arrest didn't stop among Pentecostals, but actually started with Muslims, then Jehovah's Witnesses, then Pentecostals, Orthodox, and other faiths. Just I wanted to have some points. What can we do about this? We can talk the whole day about all the government's atrocities, and we will not finish it.
Yes, Brane, can you make it shorter? And
just that's the conclusion part.
Thank you.
We need to build on our strengths. So our strength is we have centuries-old peaceful interface coexistence. We managed to live for the past 1400 together. So we need to keep that. Our common national identity is our strength. And we have shown it during the struggle for independence. And we haven't been influenced by foreign powers. Still, we keep our national identity. But we need to work on our weaknesses. There are some minor extremist elements like regionalism or religious extremists like the Agazian or Islamic fundamentals. We need to work on that. There is absence of religious and political dialogue, and also foreign influence which is not Eritrean traditions. We need to fight that together. My wish is we need to have an open dialogue on national interests that concerns all members of different faith groups. So we need to work on that. We need to practice civility and respect and be gracious to people who do not agree with us. All religions teach about living in harmony and peace with members of their faith. For me, as a Christian, the gospel text, love your neighbor as yourself, is a golden rule. My neighbor could be a Christian, a Muslim, or an agnostic. We need to make sure that our constitution serves all faith groups without any discrimination. Faith is important for the majority of Eritreans and should be seen as a fundamental human rights issue. Discrimination against any religious group is discrimination against every citizen. Thank you.
Thank you, Brahane Asmalash, for that beautiful presentation. I think we'll move straight now to our next speaker, Sheikh Omar Adam Abu Hanifa. And can I remind our speakers to stick to 8 minutes of presentation, and then we'll have a question and answer time to explore the topics presented, inshallah. So over to you, Sheikh Adam Omar Abu Hanifa.
Salam, Kubrat Hawatin Mahatin, my beloved brothers, participants. I would like to greet you all. Good afternoon to you all. We are delighted and honored to take part in this conference, and thank you, Dr. Fissahi, though he might be upset with me later on in the middle of some points, but anyway, thank you, Dr. Fissahi, for the introduction. And thank you, Abdurrahman, as well, for chairing this part. First of all, we are very much appreciate the invitation to present a paper concerning the religious persecution on Muslims and their institutions in our country of Eritrea. We also praise Eritrea Focus for its contribution through the Building Democracy initiative that helps to establish a peaceful Eritrea after inevitable change of regime. We are aware that there are several future Eritrea-focused initiatives in progress by different Eritrean agencies in Excel, and we see all such initiatives as positive moves and good intention to narrow major differences, if any, through dialogue. It is far from easy to speak about the overall religious persecution at this point of time due to a number of facts. The first reason is that we were approached late by Eritrean Focus, despite that the working group was formed in its first conference in April 2019. It takes time and effort to gather material and present it as required. The second reason is that, as we all know, the current regime commits its systematic crimes in extreme secrecy, and thus a lot of detailed facts will remain concealed until God knows when. Therefore, our paper includes the following, which should be regarded as brief. Whilst the regime's attitude to all religions in Eritrea is cynical, persecution against the followers of Islamic faith started right after the country's independence. Eritrean Muslims surely not only know the value of religion to all citizens, but also they sometimes go an extra mile in the expenses of their mistreatment for the sake of peace. However, looking at them with suspicions have always been there, unfortunately. The first victims of the regime in Eritrea following the de facto independence of the country in 1991 were Muslims before stories of disappearance became norm in late years. Irresponsible media is used to damage victims' reputation as they were criminals, a drama that the regime uses that can be described as psychological warfare. At the time, the people were celebrating the independence of Eritrea. The regime began to crack down against the Muslim intellectuals, key Muslim figures, including political leaders, businessmen, teachers, and former fighters, as they were perceived as potential critics and opponents. In the first half of 1990, the period Eritrea broke diplomatic relations with the Sudan, hundreds of teachers from various Islamic institutes in Karen and other places were arrested on random suspicions and have not been seen even to this day. Some sources confirmed that 150 of them were executed in dark circumstances. The regime interferes in the substance of the religious teaching and doctrine, and that it tightly controls that what is said and done in mosques. The Friday sermons must be censored by the Mufti office for every mosque across Eritrea. The mosques are swamped by secret service people inside the mosque who were working for national security. Religious persecution, religious practice in religious practice, prayer, is prohibited in higher education, and military consecrates are severely punished for possessing religious material or for participant in communal prayers. Dr. Taha Muhammad Noor, a prominent Muslim leader who was arrested for protesting against the interference by the government in the religious affairs and died in custody. No family member has the right to ask for cause of death in Eritrea. In between 13 and 14 August 2008, at least 40 Muslim clerics and scholars were arrested at night by masked soldiers in Asmara, San'afe, Ad-Qayyih, and Saganati, and taken away in unmarked cars, like other like others, their whereabouts remains unknown. In October 20th, 2017, government moves to seize and close the Atv Islamic School in Akhriya district in Asmara, followed by arresting its leadership, Chairman Haji Musa Muhammad Noor, who died in custody. In November 28th, 2019, more than 21 Muslim Eritrean from the town of Mandafara, Adukhala, and nearby villages in the southern region were rounded up for their business, workplaces, and home by security squad and detained. The government generally does not permit Muslim groups to receive funding from governmental or non-governmental institutions in Muslim countries, wherever whereas non-Muslim institutions such as Catholic charitable institutions and other operates freely until recent. It is not secret that Muslims in the country are not given equal participatory power in the affairs of the nation in terms of opportunity, access to resources, and political power. Finally, as equally concerned citizens, we would like to stress here that we strongly believe that most of the Eritrean people, both Muslims and Christians, want to coexist and live peacefully. The source of disharmony in the society is primarily the ruling regime that is responsible for creating imbalance and inequality in the country. It is not without reason. It is not without reason that we see vast majority of Muslims, wherever they may be, keep themselves afar from the regime and even from participating in public events organized by other faith groups, by other faith group in opposition.
Oh, Hanifa, your time is nearly up, so you want to conclude in about 1.5 minutes?
Okay, let me mention which are some suggestions. We suggest and we recommend. It is recommended drafting a new national constitution in atmosphere that is free from intimidation, where all Eritrean from all walks of life can participate and are empowered to feel they have the ownership of the process. Secondly, it is estimated that 500,000 refugees, mostly Muslims, are in Sudan, who were forced out of their country by successive Ethiopian regimes. They were not allowed to return to their home after independence. They were instead made to be assimilated in Sudanese society. They must return to their homes that they dearly missed. Thirdly, Eritrean Muslims reject all forms of extremism, as they have always been moderate in practicing their religion, and they strive to keep it that way. Therefore, we object to be we object to begin treated as second-class citizens or viewed as security risk, not only by the regime, but by also many in the oppositions. Fourthly, the future government should be should stand at equal distance from all religions, and all religious denominations should be allowed to elect their representatives according to their own bylaw without government's interference into their affairs. Finally, the final point, committees leaders should be encouraged to educate people in general, and to enlighten the youth in particular on the need of tolerance and other faith groups respect, using religious or religion as an instrument, division, fueling extremism or extreme, and violence should be challenged by all faith. I hope.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair, Abu Hanifa. Thank you so much for that presentation. Now, without further ado, we move on to our third speaker, Reverend Johannes Gabriot. Mike, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, سمع الله خده. All right, thank you. أقدم يمسجن. قدمي متاويسي زنايلو معنتي نقبراتي مدب بتي بتقرنيا سلز مثلا ميساندر سانا قاتي منتي صحيفي زمص اخو بتقرنيا ينيرو ግን ምናልባት ነቱ ጉባኤ ንምዕቃብ ካብቲ ቅድሚ ሕጂ ዝጽሓፍኮ ዶክተር ብርሃነ ምስተዛረበ ትናትና ፕሬዘንቴሽን በእንግሊሽ ምዃኑ ክርዳእ ንጸኒሑ ስለዚ በሉ ሓፂር ነገር ክብል እምበርት ምድላዋተይ ብትግርኛ አይጸኒሑ ማለት እዩ አራይ I would like to start from the situation of Patriarch Antonius in 2006. In 2006, the canonical Patriarch of Eritrea, Abuna Antonius, was forcibly removed from office for repeatedly objecting to government interference in ecclesiastical affairs. More than 3,000 members of the church's renewal movement in Medhani Alem, Eritrean Orthodox Church, which was accused of being by heretical. He was subsequently under the house arrest. The leader of Medhani Alem Church, the three leaders, very effective leader, Father Dr. Takla'ab Mangisab, Father Futsum Gabra Nugus, Father Gabra Medhin Gabra Gergis, and other also 5 monks from the Debrecen monastery is still in jail. Because of that, the Eritrean church is suffering, and the people of Eritrea as well as is scattered everywhere. The government interference has affected all Eritreans' religion. As a church, we are calling the Eritrean government needs urgently to change direction politically. It is in their need of a political transition, be it in the form of a
Okay, cool.
Yeah, ድምፂ
Got
ይመጻን
79
ኣሎ
people, my love.
Sorry. Hello. Excuse me. Can you mute your mics, please? Helen Kidane and
not muted. You're not muted either.
Helen Kidane, can you mute, please, so we can go back to the speaker? Sorry, Reverend Johannes, you may speak now.
Okay, thank you. The government interference has affected all Eritrean religion. As the church, we are calling the Eritrean government needs urgently to change direction politically. It is in their need of a political transition, be it in the form of a revolution or negotiation, to facilitate the establishment of a democratic constitution order. At the earliest opportunity, only then can the challenge of religious persecution, which is part of the Eritrean's overall human rights crisis, be addressed to ensure the protection of fundamental rights and freedom for all. Civil rights contributions to sharing the shared values of a culture into a sense of national unity. Therefore, we need to recognize the moral imperative of conforming injustice. As the scripture quotes the prophet of Amos, but let justice run down like a water and righteousness like mighty stream. Chapter 5, verses 24. Now is the right to all civil rights and political organization joining together on a common journey demands trust, mutual sharing of resources, and the commitment to share our stories and struggles in environment of seeking for justice, peace, reconciliation, freedom, liberation, and unity. Thank you so much. ታዝነበረትኒ ሕፅራ ኣቢለ ዝገበርኳታ ናይ መወዳእታ ንዚኣ ነይራ መደበይ ግን ብትግርኛ ስለ ዝመሰለኒ ሚስ አንደርሳን ኣጋጢምን እዩ ይቐኒለይ
You've done a great job, Reverend Johannes, for translating in such a short time. So that was really brilliant and well presented. Thank you, Reverend Johannes. Now, straight to the question and answer sessions. In the meantime, the beauty of virtual presentation is that you can still have your tea and coffee. You can hide your cameras if you want to and continue with the business as usual, taking into consideration the 10-15 minutes that we started late. So the first question will be over to Dr. Waldesus, and that would be followed by Dr. Muhammad Khair. I can see his hand raised here. And if anyone has any more questions, that will also be available. The opportunity, just raise your hand and we'll take a note of it. Fisaya?
Thank you. I think the questions I want to ask is, I just want to go deep in the papers they wrote. And first, I would like to apologize to Abu Hanifa. I think I joined late for the conference organizing committee. And then after I joined actually all of you, the 7 authors, I approached you at the same time. So the time constraint for all is the same. But point taken. And sorry for Reverend Johannes as well for misunderstanding. I thought I made my point clear. The papers and the conference will be in English because of the hybrid nature of the Eritrea Focus. We have got friends of Eritrea, so that is one of the reasons. To come exactly to the question now, to the 3 speakers, okay? One of the reasons we are holding this conference is to look for the future. Rightly so, the grievances that you mentioned, they are point taken, and everyone, I think, in this room accepts all what happened so far.
Fisaya.
Now, sorry.
Can I interrupt you? Just focus on the question, please.
Yeah. So my question is, as religious group leaders, as faith group leaders, if we have to move forward with the current polarization that we have, how could you help? How could you play the role, okay, in your respective areas as well as together, okay, to reach out for advocacy and also within the community groups? What could you do? This question is to each and every one of you to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we take the second and third question, and then I'll give you a chance to answer, speakers. So, Dr. Mohammed Khair, over to you with your brief question, please.
Yes, just I have a brief remark that is in the presentation of Berhane Asmalash. I thank the presenters, and I thank really Fisaya Weldesus for bringing such a diverse group. I think he has to be commended. This is what we always need. And on the Berhane Asmalash's presentation, I just want to add that Atv Johannes also was really very brutal in terms of the Muslims in the area, the Abyssinian king. And so many were driven out to Eritrea or the Afar region. And even the Coptic patriarch advised him not to do so. He was forcing people to change even their religion. That is just one note I wanted to make. The other thing I want to make is that I want to see this religious organizations such as Release Eritrea. If it is, for example, a Christian-based faith group, I would like them to take up issues related to Muslims and other groups and the traditional also religious groups. The same with the Muslim faith groups. It makes more sense when somebody from the other group takes up issues of others. So I would really encourage all these organizations to take up the diverse religious issues. And the last remark is that we need to applaud the Catholic priests who really stood up inside Eritrea and made their case very clear, like, where is my brother? So they need to be applauded also. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So there wasn't any question really, but you can comment if every one of you can take up issues of the other side. One final question I'll give to Fisaya Nair, and then speakers, you can make comments, inshallah. So Fisaya Nair, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Abdurrahman. Okay, first I would like to thank you, the presenters, Dr. Berhane, Sheikh Omar, and Rev Johannes for their presentation about the role of religion historically and at this time. The motto of this meeting is to bring together. If the religions, for example, the Monophysites, Lutheran, Catholic, Coptic Church, and Muslims, they have also different at this time. They are different. For example, our Muslim brothers' religion is Shia, and the Sunni are the major. And the Christian is also have different groups, Catholics, the Coptic, and the Lutherans. Then at this time, we want, at the same, our people want unity of the political and civil organizations. They want also unity inside the religious groups. But this will be the next time. But the organizers, Eritrea Focus, did you invite the other groups? For example, Dr. has mentioned that the Catholics are not present. Why? I don't know. But in your invitation, it depends. But Dr. Berhane said that when the Muslims, I will ask Dr. Berhane, when the Muslims in 1993 were attacked and criticize it, did you give a sign or say something that is crime going in the lowlands or any? Did you breathe? For example, I have more information when the Eritrean government invited there will be under the government, these groups were agreed and accepted that they will be ruled under the government. But the Catholics refused. They are independent. They are not going under a government. And they have mentioned, criticized 1952, if you remember, all of you, article, the third article is about freedom of religion. There is an article full of freedoms of religion in Eritrea. But where were you at this time? If you are attitude, Sheikh Umar has mentioned attitude changing. We in the opposition for democracy, justice, how much realistic are we that we have changed our attitude? Therefore, I will ask Dr. Brahane and the Rev. Johannes, did you breathe when our brothers, Muslim brothers, were taken and were killed also? Did you say something, even not in a written? I have never seen a reaction, but from the other group, Christians, there was reaction. And how are you going to change this attitude for three of you? This is my question. Attitude to be changed, attitude. How is it going, and how are you united, all these religious groups in Eritrea, for influence us as political organizations and civil society organizations? Thank you.
Thank you. So our speakers who wants to come first to just comment on any of the questions that have been asked. Should I call you, or would you like to volunteer?
Yeah, I can start with this question.
Go ahead.
I was living in Ethiopia, and I moved to Eritrea in November 1993. And I heard in the news that Muslims were being arrested. But our Muslim brother, who was the one who was talking, I forget his name, he was mentioning that there was a propaganda from the media. They were saying that these people were like Islamic fundamentalists, terrorists, something like that. And at that time, it's a new country, and all of us trust Isaias Afwerki. We thought it would bring democracy, and we didn't say anything. Not only for Muslims, but even for Jehovah's Witnesses. Not only for Jehovah's Witnesses. Even when Pentecostals were arrested, I was in London. When I started to speak out, the church didn't agree with me. So actually, we were forced out because they sided with the Sharia government. So you understand, when you are on your own, even to defend your own faith it was really hard. And also we grow through, now I know who Isaias is, the way he acts. At that time, we didn't know him. We know him, he was a freedom fighter, he was the one who gave us freedom, independence, so we liked him. Now I can see the same thing is happening in Ethiopia. People do not understand when Abiy is moving towards dictatorship. So it was the same, like what we were in the early 90s. And also I apologize that I think in one of our meetings in the past, we did wrong. But we can only move forward. We cannot go backward. Yeah.
Thank you. Any of our speakers, Mr. Sheikh Abu Hanifa or Reverend Johannes, if if you want to comment on any of the questions. If you don't have any comment, it's okay. We can move on to the next question.